What if survival in the Great War meant trading your very humanity for a muddy, rat-infested hole, where the only constant was the terrifying whisper of incoming shells and the chilling dread of tomorrow? Imagine yourself, if you will, not in the comfort of your present moment, but transported back, far back, to the year 1916. The setting is a bleak, unforgiving landscape within the heart of the Somme. On the Western Front, a trenches system stretching for miles across scarred earth. And you are, for the purpose of our quiet contemplation, a British soldier, one among millions, enduring an existence defined by discomfort, constant vigilance, and a profound, pervasive sense of vulnerability. The first sensation that might envelop you is the overwhelming chill and dampness. You stand, or perhaps carefully sit, knee-deep in mud. Imagine the thick, viscous embrace of the cold, wet earth clinging to your boots, making every movement a deliberate effort. The sounds around you would be a constant, subtle symphony of moisture, the soft slosh as you shift your weight, the quiet drip of water from the timber supports above, and the pervasive, earthy scent of damp, disturbed soil mingling with something less pleasant. Your uniform, designed for warmth, has become a source of subtle torment. Lice infest your uniform, tiny, unseen creatures that relentlessly crawl across your skin, causing an incessant, maddening itch that cannot be truly scratched. Imagine the persistent discomfort, the quiet battle against these unseen inhabitants, a constant distraction from the grander, more terrifying threats. The very fabric of your damp wool uniform would feel heavy, clinging to your skin, never truly drying in the perpetual moisture of the trench. Your daily sustenance, though vital, offers little comfort. Your diet consists primarily of stale biscuits, hard and often flavorless, perhaps soft slightly with water or weak tea. Imagine the dry, crumbly texture against your tongue, the quiet effort required to chew and swallow. There would be little of the fresh, varied fare of home, only the quiet understanding that this meager ration provides the minimal energy needed to endure another day. But beyond these physical miseries, there is a pervasive and profound psychological dimension that dictates your very existence. Shellfire shakes your bones. Imagine the distant, deep thump of artillery, a sound that vibrates through the very earth beneath your feet, a constant, unsettling reminder of the destructive power that surrounds you. Occasionally, a closer whistle and a deafening crump would send tremors through the trench, causing you to instinctively tense, your muscles tightening against an unseen impact. This segment immerses you in the sensory grind of trench life. You feel the persistent dampness, not just in your clothes, but seeping into the very leather of your rotting boots, softened and compromised by the constant mud and water. The subtle scent of mildew and stale sweat would cling to everything. And beneath all this, a pervasive, quiet tension, the constant fear of a gas attack or sniper's bullet. Imagine the sudden, quiet alarm at the distant sound of a bow, signaling gas, or the unseen crack of a rifle shot, emphasizing your complete vulnerability to unseen dangers that could arrive at any moment. To exist in such a state, to navigate daily life within this confined, damp, and dangerous trench, required immense, quiet discipline. It demanded an understanding of your place, a profound resilience in the face of constant discomfort and existential threat, and a quiet, almost meditative acceptance of forces beyond your control. The rhythm of your days would be a constant, subtle negotiation of endurance, quiet conformity, and the deep, almost primal connection to the few moments of fleeting peace or shared humanity that sustain your very existence. From the immediate, biting chill and pervasive dampness of the trench, let us now gently descend deeper into the relentless, daily realities that define the existence of a World War I soldier. The physical discomforts were but one layer. Beneath them lay a constant psychological burden, a quiet, insidious erosion of spirit brought on by the unceasing presence of threat and decay. This segment invites you to settle into the subtle yet profound horrors that permeated every moment of trench life. Imagine seeking a fleeting moment of respite within a dugout, a crude shelter carved into the trench wall, reinforced with timber and sandbags. The air inside would be thick and heavy, perhaps smelling faintly of stale earth and damp canvas. The sounds would be muffled, but never entirely absent. The distant rumble of artillery, the quiet drip of condensation from the ceiling, and perhaps the faint rhythmic scratch of a pencil on paper as you attempt to write letters by candlelight. The dim, flickering glow of the candle would cast long, dancing shadows, emphasizing the claustrophobic confines of your temporary refuge. These letters, often censored, were a vital, quiet lifeline to home, filled with carefully chosen words to mask the grim realities of your surroundings, offering comfort to those far away and seeking solace for yourself. Yet, even in these moments of quiet retreat, an insidious enemy was ever present: rats. Imagine the unsettling, scurrying sounds in the dark corners of the dugout, the faint rustle as they moved just beyond the reach of your candlelight. These creatures, grown bold and numerous on the discarded remnants of human life, were a constant, quiet nuisance. They would boldly steal your rations, gnawing through bags, or even carrying off pieces of precious food. The thought of their presence, unseen yet felt, added another layer of quiet revulsion to the already bleak environment. As night fell, a different kind of horror would emerge from the shadows: night patrols. Imagine yourself carefully, slowly, crawling through barbed wire under enemy fire. The wire, a twisted, metallic predator, would snag at your uniform, sometimes tear at your skin, its sharp barbs a constant, quiet threat. The sounds would be hushed, tense, your own shallow breathing, the soft scrape of your uniform against the earth, the distant crack of a rifle, followed by the quiet whiz of a bullet passing too close. The air would feel colder, the darkness more profound, as you navigated the treacherous terrain of no man's land, a desolate stretch of ground between the opposing trenches. Every nerve would be subtly, painfully alert. The cumulative effect of this environment was profound. Soldiers often suffered from trench foot, a debilitating condition caused by prolonged exposure to cold, wet, unsanitary conditions. Imagine the constant, dull ache in your feet, the cold numbness, followed by intense pain as circulation struggled to return. The very thought of removing your rotting boots, knowing the sight that might await you, would be a quiet dread. And amidst all this, there were whispered prayers, simple, heartfelt pleas for survival, for warmth, for an end to the torment. Imagine the faint murmur of a man's voice, almost inaudible, offering a quiet petition to a higher power in the darkness. But perhaps the most pervasive and terrifying dread was the thought of going over the top into no man's land. This was the ultimate horrifying act, climbing out of the relative safety of the trench and advancing across the open, exposed ground towards the enemy lines. Imagine the quiet, sickening churn in your stomach at the very thought, the cold sweat that might prickle your skin. The sounds in that moment would be a deafening silence before the storm, followed by the terrifying cacophony of machine gun fire, artillery, and the shouts of men. This was the ultimate lottery of life and death, a quiet terror that hung over every soldier, every moment. To endure such endless horrors, to survive even a single day, required an almost superhuman quiet resilience. It demanded a suppression of natural instinct, a profound psychological fortitude, and a chilling acceptance of mortality. The faint scratch of a pen, the furtive scurrying of unseen vermin, and the pervasive, quiet dread of the unknown. These are the calming echoes of a profound human struggle, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the sheer, quiet endurance of the trench soldier. From the relentless, quiet horrors of daily trench life, let us now gently shift our focus to a voice that emerged from its profound depths, a voice that captured the raw, unsettling truth of the conflict, Wilfred Owen, the poet-soldier whose verses became a timeless testament to the human cost of the First World War. This segment invites you to trace his quiet journey through the conflict, exploring how his haunting poetry reflected the grim realities he endured, culminating in his tragic final days, all told in a soothing tone that emphasizes the profound yet distant human cost of war. Imagine Wilfred Owen, a young man of sensitive spirit and profound observation before the war. His early life might have been filled with the gentle sounds of English countryside, the quiet rustle of books, and the measured cadence of academic contemplation. Then the immense, inescapable call of war drew him, like millions of others, into the tumultuous currents of the Western Front. His frontline experiences were typical of a trench soldier, yet his artist's eye observed them with an unflinching clarity. Imagine Owen in the very trenches we've described, the pervasive mud, the unseen lice, the constant threat of shellfire. He experienced the quiet despair of comrades, the pervasive dampness, the sheer physical and psychological grind. The sounds he heard, the distant thump of artillery, the sharp crack of rifles, the low groan of men, permeated his being, shaping the very rhythm of his later verse. Yet, unlike many, he possessed the rare gift to distill these raw, brutal sensations into words of profound beauty and quiet, unsettling power. It was from these depths of suffering that his haunting poems emerged. Imagine him in a makeshift dugout, perhaps by the faint glow of a candle, just as we pictured earlier, his pen moving across coarse paper. He did not romanticize war. Instead, he stripped away its false glory, revealing the cold, hard truths of the soldier's reality. His verses spoke of gas shells dropping soft behind, of limbs that had been whole, and of men drowning in its green sea. The very words themselves, when read softly, evoke the chilling clarity of what he witnessed. The quiet power of his descriptions, often using rich sensory details without being graphic, resonates with a profound, almost melancholic beauty. Owen's poems were not widely published during his lifetime, but their quiet, undeniable truth captured the essence of the soldier's experience like no other. He chronicled the pity of war, not through sensationalism, but through stark, compassionate observation. The sounds of his words, even when read in a whisper, carry the weight of countless unseen lives of suffering quietly endured. Tragically, just 1 week before the armistice was signed, bringing an end to the brutal conflict, Wilfred Owen met his end. His final days were spent near the Sambre-Oise Canal. Imagine the persistent sound of distant gunfire, the chill of a late autumn morning in November 1918. He was killed in action, a quiet, almost poetic end to a life dedicated to bearing witness. His death, so close to peace, became a poignant symbol of the immense human cost of the war, a silent testament to the countless lives extinguished just as hope began to emerge. This segment allows us to reflect on the unique power of art to illuminate human experience, even amidst profound despair. The subtle scratch of a poet's pen, the quiet, profound truth in his verses, and the tragic, symbolic finality of his sacrifice, these are the calming echoes of a life lived and lost within a defining conflict, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the enduring human spirit and the quiet, often devastating, price of war. From the profound human cost captured in Wilfred Owen's poignant verse, let us now gently shift our focus to the physical remnants of the conflict itself, the abandoned trenches of the Western Front. These vast, silent scars on the landscape hold their own profound mysteries, whispering tales of lives lived and lost within their muddy confines. This segment invites you on a meditative dive into the quiet world of archaeological discovery, exploring the relics of a brutal war now slowly being reclaimed by the earth. Imagine yourself standing on a quiet, undulating stretch of land in what was once the heart of the Western Front. The ground here still bears the subtle contours of forgotten lines, the ghosts of defensive positions. The quiet here is profound, broken only by the gentle sigh of the wind or the distant call of a bird. Yet beneath this seemingly peaceful surface lie countless stories preserved in the earth. This leads us to the quiet question: what secrets lie in the abandoned trenches? Decades after the guns fell silent, these intricate networks of dugouts, communication lines, and firing bays still yield their hidden treasures. The very act of archaeological exploration in these fields is a careful, quiet process, a respectful uncovering of history. Imagine the painstaking work, the soft scrape of a trowel against soil, the gentle brush of dirt from an unearthed object, each movement deliberate, reverent. As archaeologists quietly sift through the earth, they uncover fragments that speak volumes. You might imagine the discovery of rusted bayonets, their sharp edges dulled by time and corrosion, yet still carrying the silent implication of their original brutal purpose. The cold, heavy feel of such a relic in one's hand would be a tangible link to the quiet struggles of those who wielded them. Alongside these, countless personal artifacts emerge: tarnished buttons from a uniform, a broken buckle, the faint outline of a discarded boot, or perhaps a small, carefully carved piece of wood, a quiet testament to moments of idle hands and periods of anxious waiting. The subtle scent of old, damp metal and earth would accompany such finds, a tangible connection to the past. These discoveries are more than mere objects. They are crucial archaeological clues that help us to construct theories about soldiers' lives and deaths buried in the mud. A cluster of items here, the particular angle of a collapsed dugout there, the types of munitions found, all quietly contribute to our understanding. Imagine the quiet intellectual pursuit of piecing together these fragments, forming a more complete picture of the daily existence, the moments of fear, the fleeting periods of rest, and the sudden, often anonymous, ends that characterize life in the trenches. The very mud of the Western Front became a silent, unwilling burial ground for countless individuals. Their last moments often unrecorded, their final resting places unmarked. The artifacts discovered speak to the immense, quiet tragedy of this anonymity. They whisper of personal belongings left behind in the chaos of a sudden advance or a desperate retreat, of tools dropped in haste, of small mementos lost to the pervasive, consuming earth. This segment offers a meditative dive into the tangible relics of a brutal war, emphasizing the quiet power of archaeological discovery to illuminate profound human experiences. The gentle clink of metal against earth, the soft rustle of undisturbed soil, and the profound, silent stories whispered by forgotten objects. These are the calming echoes of a past that continues to reveal itself, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the enduring presence of history beneath our feet. From the quiet, buried relics that speak of lives lost in the mud, let us now gently ascend from the depths of the trenches to a distinctly contrasting perspective: the life of a British officer during the First World War. While still profoundly impacted by the conflict, their existence unfolded within a different sphere of responsibility and often a starkly different physical environment. This segment invites you to explore the privileged, yet deeply burdened, world of the officer class, from strategic planning to the quiet weight of immense decisions. Imagine yourself not slogging through the pervasive mud of the front line, but perhaps in a commandeered chateau or a well-appointed dugout set back from the immediate danger. The air here might feel drier, warmer, perhaps carrying the subtle scent of pipe tobacco, ink, and the lingering aroma of coffee or stronger spirits. The sounds would be different too. The soft clink of a teacup against its saucer, the gentle rustle of large, detailed maps being unfolded, and the low, measured tones of men in quiet discussion. Your days as an officer would be filled with a different kind of intensity. While direct combat might be less frequent, the mental strain would be constant. You would spend hours poring over intelligence reports, analyzing enemy movements, and meticulously planning battles over wine or strong tea late into the night. Imagine the strategic diagrams being sketched, the quiet debates over troop movements, the immense complexities of coordinating artillery barrages and infantry advances. The weight of these decisions would be a quiet, constant pressure, knowing that every choice had profound, life or death implications for hundreds, even thousands of men. Life behind the immediate front lines, while more comfortable, was never truly free from the war's pervasive shadow. There might be hot meals, a clean bed, and the fleeting luxury of a bath, providing a temporary respite from the grime and discomfort that defined the soldier's existence. The sounds of a crackling fire or the soft clink of cutlery would offer a brief illusion of normalcy. Yet perhaps the heaviest burden an officer carried was the profound, quiet guilt. The weight of sending men to die haunts you. Imagine signing orders, knowing that the names on the troop list represented real lives, real families. The memory of faces, the quiet conversations with the men under your command, would linger. The sounds of distant shell fire, even when muffled, would be a constant, subtle reminder of the fate awaiting those you directed. This was a privilege of leadership, but one steeped in immense moral responsibility. The quiet, solitary moments of reflection, perhaps late at night, would be filled with the unspoken questions of duty, sacrifice, and the relentless, unforgiving mathematics of warfare. This segment explores the often paradoxical world of the officer class, a life that was privileged in its material comforts, yet profoundly burdened by its responsibilities. From the intense focus of strategy meetings where the fates of armies were decided, to the solitary moments of quiet guilt that settled in the aftermath of a devastating attack. These are the calming echoes of a unique leadership experience, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the complex moral landscape of command during a global conflict. From the immediate, visceral realities of trench life and the burdens of command, let us now gently shift our perspective away from the battlefields to explore the less visible, yet equally profound, landscape of the home front. The First World War was not confined to the trenches. Its long, chilling shadow reached deep into every home, shaping lives in ways both obvious and subtly enduring. This segment invites you to contemplate the unseen scars of conflict, understanding how the war's echoes resonated through society, affecting families, women, and the soldiers who eventually returned. Imagine the quiet anxiety that permeated the homes of those left behind, the constant gnawing worry for loved ones at the front. Each day might bring the gentle thud of the postman's knock, and the quiet, almost painful anticipation of a letter, or the profound dread of receiving a telegram, a silent harbinger of devastating news. The sounds of daily life, the mundane rhythm of chores and conversation, would be punctuated by this underlying current of apprehension. Life on the home front demanded significant adjustments. Rationing became a quiet, pervasive reality. Imagine the careful measuring of flour, the sparse portions of sugar, the ingenuity required to make meager supplies stretch. The sounds of kitchens might be quieter, less bustling, as families adapted to scarcity. Women, in particular, stepped into roles previously unimaginable, filling the void left by men at war. Imagine the rhythmic clatter and hum of factories. As countless women took on industrial work, their hands, once perhaps engaged in domestic tasks, now operating heavy machinery. This was a quiet yet revolutionary transformation of society driven by necessity. But the war's most profound echoes were often the unseen ones, carried within the returning soldiers. Many came back bearing long-term mental wounds, then often referred to as shell shock. Imagine a soldier, once vital and active, now sitting quietly, perhaps staring blankly, his mind replaying silent horrors. The sounds that might trigger him would be subtle, a sudden loud noise, a distant rumble, the quiet hum of machinery. These individuals, though physically present, were often fighting silent battles within their own minds, struggling with the profound psychological trauma of what they had witnessed and endured. The challenges of reintegration into civilian life were immense. Imagine the quiet discomfort, the unspoken distance that might grow between a returning soldier and his family, who, though they loved him, could never truly comprehend the experiences that had reshaped him. The sounds of normalcy, children's laughter, familiar music, bustling streets, might seem alien, even jarring, to those whose ears were still attuned to the distant sounds of the front. This quiet suffering, often misunderstood or dismissed, became another of the war's enduring, tragic legacies. This segment allows us to reflect on the expansive reach of global conflict, extending far beyond the battlefield into the intimate spaces of family and mind. The subtle rustle of a factory uniform, the quiet sigh of a woman waiting for news, and the profound, silent struggle of a mind forever altered by the horrors it witnessed. These are the calming echoes of the war's pervasive impact, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the unseen costs of human conflict and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. So we have witnessed the profound endurance that defined this era, its unimaginable physical hardships and its quiet acts of resilience, its devastating scale and its deeply personal tragedies, its public battles and its private struggles. It is a world both brutal and deeply moving, a testament to the intricate and often contradictory nature of human existence within a rich historical tapestry. What if the deepest chill wasn't the Russian winter, but the quiet despair that permeated every stone, every whisper, in an asylum where reason often fractured and the boundaries of your own mind began to blur? Imagine yourself, if you will, not in the comfort of your present moment, but transported back, far back, to the year 1870. The setting is a vast, often grim institution within the bustling, yet often stark, city of St. Petersburg, an asylum. And you are, for the purpose of our quiet contemplation, a nurse, one among a dedicated, yet often overwhelmed staff, enduring an existence defined by challenging conditions, profound human need, and a constant, quiet vigilance. The first sensation that might envelop you is the biting chill of the Russian winter, even indoors. You move through icy wards where the cold seeps into your bones, despite your efforts. Imagine the pervasive chill that clings to every surface, the quiet shiver that might subtly ripple through you. The air would feel heavy with the cold, perhaps carrying faint, complex scents of damp stone, old linen, and something vaguely medicinal. The dominant sounds would be the soft creak of old floorboards underfoot and the gentle, persistent sigh of cold wind through unseen cracks, emphasizing the vastness and chill of the building. Your uniform, though practical, offers little true warmth against the persistent cold. Even your fur-lined coat is thin, a mere barrier against the pervasive chill that penetrates the building's massive, unheated spaces. Imagine the subtle discomfort of its rough texture against your skin, the weight of the dampness it might absorb from the cold air. This is a quiet, persistent struggle against the elements that define the very environment of care. Your daily sustenance, though vital, offers little comfort or variety. Your diet consists primarily of cabbage soup, a hearty but monotonous fare designed for sustenance over pleasure. Imagine the subtle, earthy aroma of the simmering cabbage, and the quiet warmth it might briefly offer against the internal cold. There would be little of the fresh, varied fare of home, only the quiet understanding that this meager ration provides the minimal energy needed to face another long day and night. But beyond these physical miseries, there is a pervasive and profound psychological dimension that dictates your very existence. Wails echo through the night. Imagine the sudden, piercing sound, or the long, drawn-out lament reverberating through the silent corridors, emphasizing the profound suffering that fills the asylum. These sounds, though distressing, become a familiar, almost rhythmic, part of the asylum's nocturnal soundscape, a constant reminder of the fragile human minds under your care. This segment immerses you in the sensory grind of a 19th century Russian asylum. You observe the frosty windows, often obscured by layers of ice and condensation, subtly blurring the outside world and reinforcing the isolated nature of your work. The only light in the long, dark hours often comes from flickering candles, casting long, dancing shadows that make the already challenging environment feel even more unsettling. And beneath all this, a pervasive, quiet tension, the fear of patient violence. This fear is not of overt danger, but of the sudden, unpredictable outburst, the quiet shift in a patient's demeanor, emphasizing your constant need for vigilance and calm composure in the face of profound mental distress. To exist in such a state, to navigate daily life within this confined, cold, and profoundly challenging institution required immense, quiet discipline. It demanded a deep, often unspoken empathy, a profound resilience in the face of constant physical discomfort and emotional strain, and a quiet, almost meditative acceptance of human suffering. The rhythm of your days would be a constant, subtle negotiation of duty, compassion, and the deep, almost primal connection to the few moments of clarity or shared humanity that sustained your very spirit. From the pervasive chill and the quiet, constant vigilance of the asylum wards, let us now gently descend deeper into the demanding, often unglamorous, yet profoundly essential harsh duties of Russian asylum care. The compassion of a nurse was often tested not just by the mental states of the patients, but by the sheer physical labor and the often grim realities of the institutional environment itself. This segment invites you to observe the daily routines, the quiet acts of comfort, and the ever-present anxieties that define the nurse's demanding role. Imagine your day beginning early, before dawn, the ward still shrouded in the deep, cold stillness of night. One of your quiet, recurring tasks might involve the administration of simple palliatives or, as was often the practice, vodka tonics. Imagine the subtle scent of the spirit mingling with medicinal herbs, the careful pouring into a cup. These were often given not as a cure, but to induce a temporary calm or to aid in sleep, offering a brief, fragile respite from a patient's agitation. The quiet murmur of your voice, the gentle gesture of offering the cup, would be small acts of comfort in a stark setting. Beyond direct patient interaction, the physical environment itself demanded constant, grueling labor. Throughout the long winter months, a significant duty might involve shoveling snow from paths. Imagine the bite of the bitter wind against your face, the rhythmic scrape of the shovel against frozen ground, the quiet strain in your muscles as you clear heavy drifts to ensure pathways remained passable for deliveries and essential movement. The air would be sharp with the cold, carrying the faint scent of snow and damp earth. This tireless effort was a quiet, necessary battle against the elements, ensuring the basic functioning of the asylum. Within the wards, the challenge of patient care was constant, particularly in institutions facing overcrowding. You would frequently need to dodge outbursts from overcrowded wards. Imagine the sudden, unpredictable shift in a patient's demeanor, a quiet agitation escalating into a louder, more chaotic expression of distress. The sounds could vary: a sudden shout, a frustrated moan, the quiet thud of a thrown object. Your movements would need to be calm, deliberate, yet swift, navigating these moments with a quiet grace born of experience and necessity. Always prioritizing the safety of yourself and others without resorting to harshness. And amidst these demanding duties, a constant, quiet undercurrent of faith often provided solace and guidance. You might observe or even participate in Orthodox prayers offered by chaplains or even some of the patients themselves. Imagine the low, resonant murmur of chanted supplications, the faint scent of incense, the subtle glow of icons in a quiet corner of the ward. These moments of spiritual devotion offered a profound sense of peace amidst the turmoil, a quiet acknowledgement of suffering and a hopeful plea for grace. Yet, even in these acts of duty and faith, an underlying dread permeated the nurse's existence, the dread of being blamed for escapes or deaths. Imagine the quiet anxiety that would seize you if a patient were unaccounted for, the frantic, hushed search through the vast, cold corridors, or the profound sorrow mingled with a subtle fear of reprisal, should a patient succumb to their illness or the harsh conditions. The sounds of administrative questioning, the quiet, scrutinizing gaze of overseers would add another layer of pressure to an already challenging role. These were the quiet, profound consequences of a system that often prioritized control over true understanding, where a nurse's dedicated efforts could easily be overshadowed by tragedy. To endure such harsh duties, to provide care within such a system, required immense quiet strength. It demanded a physical fortitude, a profound emotional resilience, and a chilling acceptance of a demanding, often thankless existence. The gentle shuffle of feet, the rhythmic scrape of a shovel, and the pervasive, quiet dread of the unknown. These are the calming echoes of a profound human struggle, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the sheer, quiet endurance of the Russian asylum nurse. From the demanding realities of daily asylum duties, let us now gently shift our focus to a more personal narrative, one that embodies the quiet acts of humanity that sometimes blossomed even within the most rigid systems. We turn our thoughts to Nurse Irina, a fictional character whose story allows us to explore the profound impact of individual compassion amidst the often brutal environment of a 19th century Russian asylum. This narrative traces her quiet care, a forbidden act of aid, and the profound consequences of her defiance, all told in a calm tone that honors her gentle strength within a rigid system. Imagine Nurse Irina not merely performing her duties, but approaching each patient with a quiet, inherent kindness. Her movements would be measured, her voice soft, offering a gentle presence in wards often filled with distress. Imagine her calm demeanor as she bathed a feverish patient, the subtle warmth of the water against the skin, or the gentle way she might adjust a pillow, bringing a fleeting moment of comfort. The sound surrounding her would be the muted shuffling of feet, the occasional low moan, and the quiet, steady rhythm of her own breathing as she attended to those in need. Irina's profound compassion often clashed with brutal overseers. The asylum system of the time was frequently characterized by a strict adherence to rules, a focus on control, and a pervasive lack of understanding regarding mental illness. Imagine the subtle tension in the air when an overseer, perhaps a stern administrator or a less empathetic guard, would cast a cold, scrutinizing gaze upon Irina's gentle methods. The sounds might be the harsh clatter of a key, the firm thud of an office door, or the clipped, authoritative tones of a reprimand. Irina, however, would persist in her quiet acts of kindness, understanding that true care extended beyond mere routine. One such act of kindness became a pivotal, forbidden aid to a patient. Imagine a particular patient, perhaps one who displayed moments of fragile lucidity or a profound, quiet despair. Irina, observing beyond the surface symptoms, might perceive a deeper need. Perhaps it was a quiet effort to retrieve a lost memento, a subtle attempt to facilitate a whispered message to a distant family member, or the clandestine provision of a simple, comforting item not permitted by the strict rules. The sounds involved would be hushed, furtive, the soft rustle of a hidden letter, the gentle clink of a small, concealed object, or the quiet, reassuring murmur of Irina's voice in a moment of shared, unspoken understanding. These were acts of quiet defiance, born not of rebellion, but of a deep human empathy. However, such acts of compassion, when discovered within a rigid and often unforgiving system, carried severe consequences. Imagine the subtle shift in the atmosphere, the cold, accusing gaze, the formal summons. The whispers among the staff might grow, hushed and cautious. Ultimately, Irina's quiet defiance led to her exile. She would be dismissed from her post, perhaps even banished from St. Petersburg, forced to seek her livelihood elsewhere. Imagine the quiet, dignified packing of her few belongings, the last glance at the imposing asylum walls, and the cold, unyielding stretch of the road ahead. Her departure would be largely silent, a solitary figure disappearing into the vastness of the Russian landscape, her quiet compassion having proved too inconvenient for the prevailing system. This narrative, though fictional, traces the profound impact of individual conscience within a challenging historical context. It highlights the quiet courage of those who, like Nurse Irina, dare to extend true empathy in a world that often lacked it. The gentle rustle of a patient's blanket, the subtle tension of a forbidden's act, and the quiet dignity of a soul forced to leave. These are the calming echoes of a compassionate spirit, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the quiet battles fought for humanity in the shadows of history. From the quiet acts of individual compassion, let us now gently shift our focus to a more unsettling, yet equally compelling, mystery that might linger within the very architecture of a 19th century Russian asylum, the enigma of its sealed rooms. These forgotten spaces, often locked away and left undisturbed, hold a profound silence, hinting at hidden stories and the complex, sometimes troubling, practices of a bygone era in mental care. This segment invites you on a soothing journey into the shadows of Tsarist mental care, exploring the subtle clues left behind. Imagine yourself moving slowly through the older, less frequented sections of the asylum, perhaps a wing long abandoned even before the current time. The corridors here would be colder, the air heavier with the scent of long undisturbed dust and damp stone. You might notice, amidst the peeling paint and crumbling plaster, a particular door that stands out. It is solid, perhaps iron-banded, and securely fastened, not with a simple lock, but with a heavy, rusted mechanism that speaks of long disuse. This leads us to the quiet question: why were certain rooms locked in Russian asylums? The very existence of such sealed rooms irks a quiet curiosity. Were they simply storage? Or did they hold something more profound, something that the institution wished to keep hidden from casual view? Archaeological investigation or simply careful observation of these long-forgotten spaces can sometimes yield clues. Imagine the painstaking process of removing decades of accumulated dust and debris, revealing what lies beneath. You might picture the discovery of rusted keys, perhaps still attached to a fragile, tarnished ring, hinting at who once held the power to open such doors, or why they were so definitively sealed. The cold, heavy feel of a rusted key, a silent artifact, would be a tangible link to a forgotten past. Within such a room, if one were ever to be quietly accessed, what might be found? Perhaps fragmented furniture or the faint outlines of where a bed once stood. More compellingly, one might discover patient drawings or crude etchings on the walls, faint lines scratched into the plaster, depicting abstract figures, repetitive patterns, or perhaps desperate, simplified images of home or freedom. Imagine the quiet, almost melancholic resonance of these silent expressions, created by minds struggling with their own realities, unburdened by outside observation. The subtle texture of the rough wall, the faded colors of a charcoal line, would offer an intimate glimpse into a secluded world. These findings can lead to various theories about hidden experiments or abuses. The 19th century was a time of evolving, yet often harsh, approaches to mental illness. Some theories might suggest these rooms were used for isolation for particularly agitated patients, or for novel, sometimes cruel, therapeutic methods. Others might ponder if they contained sensitive patient records, or even the remnants of treatments now deemed unethical. The very act of sealing such a room implies a desire for concealment, a quiet acknowledgement of practices that might not withstand public scrutiny. The sounds within such a space would be minimal. The soft creak of floorboards underfoot, the gentle whisper of air currents, and the profound, heavy silence of time undisturbed. This segment offers a soothing journey into the shadows of Zara's mental care, emphasizing the quiet power of physical spaces and subtle artifacts to tell profound, often unsettling stories. The gentle clink of a rusted key, the faded lines of a patient's drawing, and the profound, silent questions posed by a sealed room, these are the calming echoes of hidden histories, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the complex and sometimes uncomfortable past of human understanding and compassion. From the quiet, unsettling mysteries of the asylum's sealed rooms and the demanding duties of the nurses, let us now gently shift our focus to a contrasting perspective: the life of a Russian asylum doctor in the 19th century. While removed from the daily physical toil of the nurses, their world was one of intellectual pursuit, societal expectation, and a unique set of profound burdens. This segment invites you to explore the privileged, yet deeply troubled, existence of the medical elite, from their academic studies to the quiet weight of patient suffering and bureaucratic pressures. Imagine yourself not navigating the icy wards or shoveling snow, but within the relative warmth and quiet dignity of a private study or an administrative office within the asylum. The air here would feel different, perhaps carrying the subtle scent of old books, polished wood, and the faint, rich aroma of pipe tobacco or brewing tea. The sounds would be precise and measured, the soft scratch of a pen as you meticulously record observations or compose reports, the gentle rustle of heady medical texts being consulted, and the low, measured tones of consultations with colleagues or visiting officials. Your days as an asylum doctor would be filled with a different kind of intensity. While direct patient care might be handled by nurses, your responsibility lay in diagnosis, research, and the conceptualization of treatment. You would spend hours in deep thought, poring over medical journals, discussing theories with peers, and meticulously prescribing treatments. Imagine the careful consideration of a patient's symptoms, the subtle weighing of various remedies from sedatives like opium or chloral hydrate to hydrotherapy or even the novel moral treatment that emphasize routine and gentle persuasion. The quiet gravity of these decisions would be a constant, subtle pressure, knowing that each choice could profoundly impact a patient's fragile mind. Life for a doctor, especially a chief physician, offered significant comforts compared to other staff. You might retire to a warm study where a fire crackled softly in the hearth. Dinners might be more substantial, perhaps featuring the hearty, comforting aroma of borscht served with fresh bread. Imagine the subtle warmth of the food, the quiet satisfaction of a meal taken in peace. These moments of respite were essential, providing a brief separation from the intense realities of the wards. Yet the weight of your responsibilities was never entirely absent. Indeed, despite these privileges, the pervasive patient suffering weighed heavily on the doctor's conscience. While not directly witnessing every moment of distress, the daily reports, the incurable cases, and the sheer volume of human anguish would cast a long, quiet shadow. Imagine the quiet moments of despair in the solitude of your study, contemplating the limitations of contemporary medical knowledge against the overwhelming tide of mental illness. The distant wails that might occasionally penetrate the thicker walls, or the somber reports from your nurses, would be a constant, subtle reminder of the profound suffering under your care. Adding to this burden were the relentless bureaucratic pressures. Imagine the endless paperwork, the demanding inspections from government officials, the constant need to justify budgets and defend methods that were often poorly understood by the wider society. The sounds of official seals stamping documents, the terse tone of an unfavorable report, or the quiet, persistent demands from the state bureaucracy would add another layer of stress to an already challenging role. The doctor's position was a delicate balance between scientific curiosity, human empathy, and the unforgiving demands of a rigid, often underfunded system. This segment explores the complex, often solitary, world of the 19th century asylum doctor, a life privileged in its intellectual pursuits and material comforts, yet profoundly burdened by the immense suffering of their patients and the relentless demands of the system. From the quiet scratch of a pen, meticulously prescribing treatments, to the profound, silent weight of unseen suffering and bureaucratic demands, these are the calming echoes of a unique leadership experience, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the intricate moral and intellectual landscape of early mental health care. From the burdens and privileges of the asylum doctor, let us now gently shift our focus to the most central, yet often silenced, figures within these institutions, the patients themselves. Their experiences, often unrecorded or dismissed, represent a profound and poignant aspect of 19th century mental care. This segment invites you to contemplate their hidden narratives and the pervasive impact of lost records, offering a meditative exploration into the quiet, often unarticulated, lives confined within the asylum walls. Imagine the countless individuals who passed through the heavy doors of a Russian asylum. Many arrived not by choice, but by societal decree or family desperation. Their diagnoses, by modern standards, might seem vague or misinformed, encompassing everything from profound psychiatric conditions to social nonconformity or even temporary distress. Their days within the asylum would often be marked by routine, by the structured rhythms of institutional life, but also by profound internal struggles and a quiet, persistent yearning for understanding or freedom. The sounds they might hear would be a mix of the mundane and the distressing, the quiet shuffle of attendants, the distant wails of other patients, the low murmur of conversations outside their cells, and the profound, echoing silence of their own thoughts. A central challenge in understanding these lives lies in the nature of lost records. Many asylum archives from this period are incomplete, fragmented, or have simply vanished over time. Imagine the frustration of a modern historian seeking to reconstruct these lives, finding only sparse entries, illegible handwriting, or entire registers missing. The subtle scent of decaying paper in a forgotten archive, the faint light of a lamp illuminating faded ink. These quiet moments of historical investigation underscore the fragility of memory and the pervasive anonymity that often befell the marginalized. Yet, despite the institutional silence, glimpses of hidden narratives sometimes emerge. These might not be found in official reports, but in unexpected places. Perhaps a nurse, like Irina from our earlier segment, kept a clandestine diary, recording observations or quiet acts of defiance that never made it into formal charts. Imagine the careful, hurried strokes of her pen in the dim light, capturing details that official narratives overlooked. Or perhaps, as in the mystery of the sealed rooms, a patient left behind patient drawings or crude carvings, silent, desperate attempts to communicate an inner world that words could not convey. The subtle texture of a rough wall, the faded colors of a long-ago crayon, would offer a profound, intimate connection to a mind struggling to express itself. Consider also the informal networks of communication that might have existed between patients. A whispered secret during a rare moment of unsupervised interaction, a smuggled note, a shared glance of understanding. These fragile connections formed a vital, if unrecorded, part of their existence. The soft murmur of a hushed conversation, the gentle brush of hands passing a tiny, folded piece of paper. These were small acts of humanity that defied the cold, often isolating institutional structure. The lives of these patients, though often marked by suffering and confinement, were not without their moments of resilience, their quiet moments of humanity, and their profound, often unarticulated dignity. The pervasive silence surrounding their stories only amplifies the importance of the subtle clues that remain. The faint echoes of a forgotten voice, the quiet mystery of a life unrecorded, and the profound, silent presence of those who lived and died within these walls. These are the calming echoes of hidden human experience, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the quiet perseverance of the human spirit in the face of profound adversity. And so, our tranquil journey through the cold corridors and complex human landscapes of a 19th century Russian asylum gently draws to its close. We have ventured into the biting chill and constant vigilance defining the life of a nurse, feeling the pervasive dampness and the echo of patients' wails. We then explored the harsh daily duties of care, from administering tonics to shoveling snow, always under the quiet dread of blame. We contemplated the profound impact of individual compassion through the fictional yet representative story of Nurse Irina, whose quiet defiance led to exile. We explored the unsettling mystery of the asylum's sealed rooms, pondering the hidden practices hinted at by rusted keys and patient drawings. We then contrasted these experiences with the privileged, yet deeply burdened, world of the Russian asylum doctor, understanding the immense weight of their prescriptions and the quiet guilt they carried. Finally, we delved into the profound, often unrecorded, narratives of the patients themselves, contemplating the enduring power of their hidden voices amidst lost records. What if your quiet search for meaning led you not to peace, but to a forgotten medieval Japanese village where the silence itself whispers tales of hunger, hardship, and the chilling specter of restless spirits? Imagine yourself, if you will, not in the comfort of your present moment, but transported back, far back, to the year 1450 CE. The setting is a quiet, desolate place near the ancient capital of Kyoto, a deserted village standing as a silent testament to a recent, brutal past. And you are, for the purpose of our quiet contemplation, a solitary wanderer, venturing into this stillness, seeking what little sustenance or shelter it might offer. Your existence here is defined by stark necessity, the pervasive atmosphere of abandonment, and a subtle, unsettling awareness of unseen presences. The first sensation that might envelop you is the profound quiet. The village is empty, its former inhabitants long gone. You move slowly, scavenging among charred timbers, the remnants of homes consumed by fire, a harsh reminder of conflict. Imagine the feeling of rough, splintered wood beneath your fingers, perhaps cold and damp. The air would be heavy with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the faint, acrid smell of old soot. The dominant sounds would be natural and pervasive, the soft, constant patter of rain on the few remaining roofs or the fallen debris, and the melancholic, distant caw of a crow, its call echoing through the empty spaces. Your journey through this forgotten landscape is physically demanding. The paths are overgrown, the ground uneven. Rain soaks your straw sandals, making them heavy and squelching with every step. Imagine the cool dampness against your feet, the subtle chafing as you move. Your clothing, likely simple and practical, would offer little protection from the persistent moisture that permeates the village. This is a quiet, persistent struggle against the elements and the weariness of constant movement. Your diet, dictated by scarcity, would be starkly simple. Your meals consist primarily of wild rice, perhaps gathered from abandoned paddies or cultivated patches that have reverted to nature, supplemented by any wild edibles you might find. Imagine the bland, yet sustaining, taste of the unhusked grains, perhaps chewed slowly to extract what little nourishment they offer. There would be no warmth from a roaring hearth, only the quiet understanding that each bite provides the minimal energy needed to face another day in this desolate place. But beyond these physical challenges, there is a pervasive psychological dimension that quietly affects your perceptions. As you move through the village, you encounter eerie shrines that unnerve you. These humble structures, perhaps overgrown with moss and vines, might contain forgotten offerings or weathered stone figures, their features softened by time and neglect. Imagine the subtle discomfort, the quiet sense of intrusion as you pass these neglected sacred spaces. They stand as silent witnesses to a past devotion, now touched by abandonment and the subtle feeling of restless spirits. This segment immerses you in the sensory grind of this deserted place. You experience the cool, pervasive dampness, the feeling of damp bamboo brushing against your clothes as you push through overgrowth. You hear the mournful crow calls echoing through the empty landscape, a sound that emphasizes the solitude and desolation. And beneath it all, there is the constant, subtle fear of restless spirits. This fear is not of overt danger, but of the quiet, pervasive feeling of being watched by unseen presences, of disturbing the repose of those who once lived and perhaps perished here. It is a quiet burden influencing every step, every glance. Into the shadows to exist in such a state, to navigate daily life within this abandoned landscape, required immense, quiet discipline. It demanded an understanding of the impermanence of human endeavor, a respect for the unseen, and a profound resilience in the face of constant physical and psychological demands. The rhythm of your days would be a constant, subtle negotiation of survival, quiet observation, and the deep, almost primal connection to the echoes of a past that lingered in the very air. From the immediate, persistent dampness and the subtle fear of lingering spirits, let us now gently deepen our exploration into the profound stillness of this Japanese ghost village. The quiet here is not merely an absence of sound, but a pervasive presence, a canvas onto which the echoes of a lost past are subtly painted. This segment invites you to move with quiet curiosity through the abandoned structures, piecing together, through imagination, the lives that once filled these now silent spaces. Imagine yourself moving slowly, deliberately, as you explore abandoned huts. The doors, if still attached, might hang loosely on their hinges, creaking softly with the slightest breeze. The interior air would be cool, stagnant, perhaps carrying the faint scent of old earth and decaying straw from the tatami mats that might have once covered the floor. The sounds inside these quiet shells would be minimal. The soft tap of your straw sandal on the earthen floor, the gentle whisper of dust disturbed by your passage, and the distant, almost imperceptible drip of water from a slow leak in the roof. These silent dwellings, you might gently uncover remnants of lives abruptly interrupted. You could find broken lanterns, perhaps once casting a warm, inviting glow on family meals or evening conversations. Imagine the delicate feel of cracked paper or fractured bamboo as you carefully examine a forgotten piece. Nearby, you might discover fragments of faded scrolls, their inked characters barely discernible, perhaps remnants of household accounts, simple prayers, or even fragments of a personal letter. Imagine the subtle, dry scent of ancient paper, its texture brittle with age. As you carefully turn a piece over in your hand, pondering the hands that once held it, the eyes that once read its words. As you observe these quiet relics, your mind begins to imagine the farmers who fled samurai wars. You can picture them working the land, their hands calloused, their faces weathered by sun and wind. You can almost hear the soft murmur of their conversations, the gentle laughter of children, the rhythmic sound of their tools in the fields. The broken artifacts become quiet prompts, allowing you to reconstruct the quiet rhythms of their daily lives, their rising with the sun, their patient tending of the crops, their simple evening meals, all before the inevitable sudden approach of conflict shattered their peaceful existence. This segment deepens the immersion into the village's poignant silence. Beyond the individual huts, you might wander into the expansive, now deserted rice paddies. Imagine the vast, flat expanse, now perhaps overgrown with reeds and wild grasses. The neatly terraced fields of the past, now subtly blurred by nature's reclaiming hand. The soft swish of the wind through the tall grasses would be the only sound, where once the rhythmic slosh of human labor would have prevailed. The irrigation channels might be dry or choked with weeds, silent testaments to the sudden cessation of human care. Further within the village, you might find forgotten altars, perhaps a small stone Jesus statue covered in moss, or a simple wooden shrine dedicated to a local kami. Imagine the weathered stone, cool to the touch, the faint scent of damp earth around its base. These altars, once tended with quiet devotion, now stand in silent vigil, their original purpose muted by time and abandonment. They whisper of the villagers' beliefs, their hopes, and their quiet prayers for protection. Prayers that perhaps, in the end, were not enough. And through all these quiet observations, a pervasive sense of the mystery of the village's end lingers in the air. There are no dramatic narratives in the stillness, only quiet implications. Was it a sudden attack? A slow decline? A desperate flight? The broken lanterns, the faded scrolls, the deserted patties, and the forgotten altars all point to a history that concluded abruptly, leaving behind only these subtle melancholic clues. The sounds of your own quiet breathing, the distant drip of water, and the soft rustle of the wind become the soundtrack to this silent, enduring mystery. To exist in such a space, to observe these silent testaments to a lost past, requires a profound sense of quiet observation and empathetic imagination. It demands an understanding of the fragility of human settlement and the powerful, transforming force of conflict. The cool air within an abandoned hut, the subtle scent of decay, and the profound, pervasive quiet. These are the calming echoes of a lost community, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the unseen histories that linger in desolate places. From the quiet, lingering silence of the abandoned village ruins, let us now gently shift our focus to a more personal narrative, one that embodies the broader, turbulent forces that often shaped medieval Japan. We turn our thoughts to Lady Aiko, a fictional noblewoman whose life, intertwined with such a village, was irrevocably altered by the very conflict that led to its abandonment. The devastating Onin War. This segment traces her quiet flight, the poignant experience of lost love, and the tragic ruin of her beloved village, all told in a soothing tone that evokes the profound, yet distant, chaos of feudal Japan. Imagine Lady Aiko, not a peasant, but a woman of gentle upbringing, accustomed to the subtle comforts of a noble household near the village. Her days might have been filled with quiet pursuits, the delicate art of poetry, the arrangement of flowers, or the measured strokes of calligraphy. The sounds around her would have been refined, the soft rustle of silk, the gentle clink of ceramic, teacups, and the distant, polite murmur of household retainers. Then, the distant whispers of war began to grow louder. The Onin War, a sprawling conflict that began in 1467, slowly enveloped the heart of Japan, turning Kyoto and its surrounding regions into a landscape of intermittent skirmishes and profound uncertainty. Imagine the subtle shift in the air, the growing tension that would permeate even the most secluded manor. The familiar sounds of daily life would gradually be punctuated by the distant, unsettling thump of marching feet or the far-off clash of steel. Carried faintly on the wind. As the conflict drew nearer, the decision to leave was made with quiet urgency. Imagine Lady Aiko's flight from her ancestral home. Not a frantic rush, but a hurried, deliberate departure under the cloak of night. Perhaps, or in the early hours of a misty morning. The sounds would be hushed, the soft pat of straw sandals on damp earth, the gentle rustle of her traveling robes against tall grasses, and the quiet thud of her heart against her ribs. The air would be cool, perhaps carrying the damp scent of dew-laden leaves. She would carry only what was essential, the weight of a few precious belongings, a quiet burden in her arms. During this tumultuous period, the threads of her life, like many others, were tragically severed. Imagine the profound sorrow of lost love, perhaps a betrothed, a husband, or a dear family member, a warrior caught in the relentless tide of conflict, vanished amidst the chaos, or fell in battle. The grief would be a quiet, pervasive ache, a profound sense of absence. The memories of shared laughter, of quiet promises made under a moonlit sky, would become cherished, yet painful, whispers in her mind. There are no dramatic declarations. Here, only the silent, enduring weight of separation and loss, and then the quiet, devastating news of her village's fate. The very village we explored earlier, now a place of charred timbers and lingering shadows. Imagine the quiet despair of receiving such tidings. The home she knew, the community that had sustained her, now reduced to ruins. The village's ruin would not be a spectacle of fire and smoke to her, but a profound emptiness, a silent void where life once thrived. The sounds she might recall now transform into the echoes of what once was, muted by the pervasive stillness of destruction. This narrative, though fictional, traces the profound human experience of war's quiet impact. It is a story of resilience, of subtle endurance in the face of overwhelming forces. Lady Aiko's journey reflects the countless, unnamed individuals who quietly navigated the dangers and losses of feudal Japan. The gentle rustle of leaves on a lonely path, the distant murmur of an unseen conflict, and the profound, silent echo of a heart that carries loss. These are the calming whispers of a profound historical reality, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the quiet tragedies that often accompany grand historical events. From the poignant echoes of Lady Aiko's flight and the broader chaos of the Onin War, let us now gently shift our focus to a particular, intriguing detail that might emerge from the silent remnants of our ghost village, the mystery of the hidden scrolls. Imagine, if you will, the quiet discovery of ancient objects that offer a subtle, whispered glimpse into the hopes, fears, and desperate final acts of those who once called this place home. This segment invites you on a meditative dive into Japan's lost history, exploring the quiet secrets preserved beneath the earth dot as you continue your thoughtful exploration of the village ruins. Moving with quiet reverence through the overgrown foundations, a subtle clue might present itself. Perhaps beneath a collapsed hearth, or within the crumbling remnants of a forgotten storehouse, you notice something unexpected. A small, dry, earthen cavity, revealing the corner of something that does not belong to nature's reclaiming embrace. This leads us to the quiet question, why were scrolls buried in the village's ruins? The very act of carefully burying precious documents suggests a deliberate intent, a desperate hope for preservation amidst profound uncertainty. Imagine the hands that meticulously wrapped them, the quiet resolve in their movements as they committed these fragile pieces of knowledge to the earth, hoping they might one day be found, or simply survive the inevitable destruction above ground. The sounds during such an act would be hushed, perhaps only the gentle pat of earth being tamped down, a final, silent farewell. This segment allows us to explore archaeological clues and theories about their role. Were they family records, genealogies, tracing lineages that were now scattered or lost? Imagine the faded ink, the delicate lines of family names, each a silent testament to a life lived. Perhaps they were religious texts, prayers carefully copied, appeals to the gods for protection or solace during tumultuous times. The subtle scent of time-worn parchment, dry and earthy, would accompany such a discovery, a tangible link to a distant faith. Or, more intriguingly, could they contain secrets, perhaps land deeds, hidden caches of valuables, or even silent testimonies about the events that led to the village's abandonment? Archaeological findings from similar contexts often reveal such buried caches, providing invaluable insights into the daily lives and anxieties of people facing upheaval. The state of the scrolls, how they were wrapped, the type of container they were in, if any, and their precise location would all be quiet clues, allowing historians and archaeologists to subtly piece together the narrative of the village's final days. Imagine the quiet excitement of an archaeologist carefully brushing away layers of dust and earth, revealing the fragile rolled form of an ancient document, the soft whisper of a brush against dry soil, the gentle clink of a small tool, wood, accompany this patient work of discovery. The act of burying these scrolls speaks volumes without a single word. It suggests a community facing an existential threat, a people who understood the fragility of their existence and sought to preserve what they could, not for immediate use, but for a future uncertain. These hidden treasures represent a profound human impulse to protect knowledge, to record life, or to entrust fate to something beyond their control. They are the quiet, desperate cries of a past generation, reaching out across the centuries. This segment offers a meditative dive into Japan's lost history, emphasizing the quiet power of tangible artifacts to tell profound stories. The subtle scent of ancient paper emerging from the earth, the delicate texture of a time-worn scroll, and the profound questions they quietly pose about a vanished past. These are the calming echoes of hidden histories, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the enduring human desire to preserve and remember. From the quiet, poignant mysteries hidden within abandoned village, let us now gently shift our gaze to a profoundly contrasting world, the disciplined, yet ever turbulent, existence of a samurai lord during Japan's tumultuous medieval period. This segment invites you to step into a life of privilege and power, where honor and readiness were paramount, offering a stark counterpoint to the quiet struggle of the wanderer and the sorrow of the displaced villager. Imagine yourself, not scavenging among ruins, but within the meticulously ordered confines of a fortified manor, perhaps perched on a strategic hillside, overlooking fertile lands before their desolation. The air here would feel crisp, imbued with the clean scent of polished wood, the subtle aroma of freshly brewed green tea, and perhaps the faint metallic scent of well-maintained steel. The sounds would be precise and measured, the soft creak of wooden floorboards as disciplined footsteps pass, the distant, rhythmic thump of a wooden practice sword hitting a post, or the gentle, soothing drip of water in a serene rock garden. Your days as a samurai lord would be governed by a rigorous schedule, a testament to the discipline of the warrior class. Much of your time would be dedicated to training. Imagine observing your retainers and even participating yourself. As you trained warriors in the various martial arts, the focused swish of a katana being drawn and sheathed, the soft thud of a bowstring as an arrow is released, or the quiet, strained grunts of men practicing their techniques. This continuous readiness was not for sport, but for survival in a fragmented and competitive age. Evenings, though offering respite, were also structured. You might find yourself in a formal chamber, participating in a quiet ceremony of hospitality. Imagine the gentle pouring of sake into small ceramic cups, its subtle, sweet aroma filling the air. The sounds would be soft, the quiet clink of cups, the measured tones of conversation, and perhaps the gentle strumming of a shamisen or koto played by a skilled musician in adjacent room. These feasts were not merely for pleasure, but also served to strengthen bonds with loyal retainers and subtly display one's status. However, beneath this veneer of order and privilege, a constant tension quietly permeated your world. Rival clans loomed. Imagine the subtle dispatches brought by weary messengers, the coded warnings, the quiet intelligence gatherings that would occupy your thoughts. The sound of distant drum beats, or the sight of smoke on the horizon, would send ripples of anxiety through the most disciplined household. Trust was a rare commodity, and alliances were often fragile, shifting with the prevailing winds of power. The very walls of your fortified manor, though offering a sense of security, were constant reminders of the external threats. This segment explores the disciplined yet fundamentally turbulent world of Japan's warrior elite. Their lives were a delicate balance of refined culture and brutal pragmatism. They patronized the arts, embraced Zen philosophy, and cultivated a deep appreciation for beauty, yet they were always prepared for, and often engaged in, deadly conflict. The crisp snap of a banner in the wind, the quiet shing of a blade being drawn, and the profound, silent weight of constant vigilance. These are the calming echoes of a life defined by honor, discipline, and the ever-present shadow of imminent struggle, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the intricate world of medieval Japanese power. From the disciplined yet turbulent world of samurai lords, where human conflict shaped the landscape, let us now gently turn our thoughts to the invisible, yet deeply felt, dimensions of medieval Japanese belief, the lingering spirits that were thought to inhabit abandoned places. This segment invites you to explore the rich folklore surrounding restless presences, offering a contemplative lens through which to understand the subtle unease that might have permeated our ghost village. Imagine the pervasive sense of a subtle presence that might accompany you as you walk through such a deserted village, particularly as dusk settles or when the mist rolls in. In medieval Japan, the concept of spirits, or yurei, was deeply ingrained in the cultural consciousness. It was believed that individuals who died suddenly, violently, or with powerful unfulfilled yearnings might not pass peacefully into the afterlife. Instead, their spirits could linger, tied to the place of their demise or their deepest attachments. The very quiet of an abandoned village, broken only by the natural sounds, could be interpreted as a canvas for these unseen presences. This leads us to the quiet question: why would certain spirits linger in abandoned places? Often, these were individuals who suffered tragic ends during times of war, farmers caught in a skirmish, families displaced and perishing from hardship, or warriors falling far from home. Their attachments to life, their unresolved sorrows, or their yearning for peace could cause their essence to remain, subtly influencing the atmosphere of a place. Imagine the profound weight of a life cut short, the quiet regret of unsaid words, the silent ache of a home lost, all subtly contributing to the spiritual landscape. Japanese folklore details various types of these spirits. Some were unreal, vengeful, spirits born from profound wrongs, their presence radiating a quiet chill. Others were simply lost souls, yurei without specific malice, merely tethered to their earthly attachments. Consider how such beliefs would subtly shape a wanderer's perception of our ghost village. Every unidentifiable rustle, every unexpected cold spot, every faint, distant whisper of wind could be interpreted through the lens of these ancient beliefs. The sound of a single distant bird call, or the quiet drip of water from a hidden spring, might suddenly feel laden with unspoken meaning. To soothe these restless presences, or to prevent their emergence, various rituals for appeasement were often performed. Imagine Buddhist monks, after a battle or a period of upheaval, quietly chanting sutras or performing purification rites at a makeshift altar. The rhythmic, calming tones of their voices, the gentle burning of incense, and the thoughtful gestures would be aimed at guiding these lingering spirits towards peace. Even the simple act of leaving a small offering, a handful of rice or a fresh flower at a forgotten shrine, was a quiet gesture of respect, a subtle plea for harmony with the unseen. This segment offers a meditative exploration of how profound historical events like the Onin War and the abandonment of villages were not just physical phenomena, but also deeply spiritual ones. The lingering mist over a deserted patio, the cool, quiet air within a crumbling hut, and the subtle, unseen threads of ancient beliefs. These are the calming echoes of a rich spiritual landscape, inviting deep and tranquil contemplation on the ways in which human culture attempts to understand and interact with the mysteries beyond life. As the echoes of these quiet, yet deeply evocative tales gently recede into the stillness of the past, allow your mind to drift back to the comfort and tranquility of your own space, your own time. The distant calls of crows have quieted. The subtle rustle of hidden scrolls has faded. The journey through this fascinating age is complete. May your rest be deep and your dreams peaceful. Good night.